Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome yet again to another episode of Dinner Guide. My name is Chef Andy, and today I have something beautiful lined up for all of you. I'm going to be showing you how to make something very simple, something cost effective and healthy for you and your family. We are going to be doing some beautiful dishes today. We are going to be making a fried githeri. We're also going to be making an arrowroot stew, and we're also going to be doing a ginger spiced smoothie. So without further ado, I'll start by introducing our ingredients. So I'll be using some salt and some nutmeg. I've also got some beautiful dried parsley, some dried thyme and some garlic powder. I've also got some fresh ginger and some mixed nuts. I've also here got some parboiled githeri. I've also got some soy milk. I've got some beautiful baby spinach, some water, a bit of olive oil, a bit of turmeric powder, some parboiled arrowroots, 2 tomatoes there, and 1 red onion. So we're going to take a short commercial break now, and I'll give you a chance to grab your pens and papers if you're taking notes. And when we come back, we're going to dive straight into it. So see you after a short while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're just about to start making this very simple dish. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by making our fried githeri. So for that, you'll of course need your githeri, and you'll also need some chopped onions. So we're gonna peel one really quickly. Just gonna use my knife. So be sure to just get that rough skin off really nicely. And now, particularly for the githeri dish that we're going to be making today, remember this is a very staple dish here in Kenya particularly. Works as a very good substitute for protein for those who are not very much able to eat meat on a regular basis. Also a very staple dish for a lot of poor families here in Kenya. But that being said, it doesn't really necessarily mean that you can't really have a very good githeri. So I'm actually going to show you my particular favorite recipe. So starts very easily by chopping up half a red onion. So we're going to do the same thing with the other half. Just cut some slits. Right, so starts off very easily by chopping some onions. So we're basically going to use half and half of this. And for the first half, so I'm just going to split that in two. For the first half, we're going to use it to make our githeri fry, and for the second one, we're going to be making our arrowroot stew. So we'll start off by heating up our pot. And to that, I will add about a tablespoon of cooking oil. And easily, we go in first of all with our red onions. So we are going to save some of this beautiful red onion for later. So I'm just going to move that onto a plate. Right, easy as that. We're also going to need some tomato. So I'm just quickly going to take those root bits off quickly. And for the tomatoes, I'm just going to quarter those first. And then we're just going to roughly chop those up. So I'm going to be using whole tomatoes, but if you do prefer, you could also use some peeled tomatoes, which would basically entail you just dropping your tomatoes into some alkaline water and they'll easily just skin off. Right, so easy as that. I'm gonna throw those root bits away. So just back to the pan, we're gonna start off by sweating up our onions. So very quick process. To that we're gonna be adding our chunked tomatoes. Right, easy as that. And basically what you want to do is you want to continue frying this and just allow the tomatoes to just release some water into the mixture. Remember, for this particular githeri fry, it's going to be a very dry one, so we're not going to incorporate much water into it. But we are rather going to use the water particularly just to help us break down our tomatoes. So I'm only going to add very, very little bits of water into our pot. I'm just going to cover that and just allow the steam to really build up in there. And while that continues, we're also going to start cutting up our arrowroot. So remember, as I mentioned, these were previously just boiled in some water. So particular, very, very simple process of boiling your arrowroot. I always just start with a pot of water and I add a bit of salt to it. For the arrowroots particularly, always convenient enough to boil them with the skin on and then peel them after. That way you actually manage to retain most of the nutrients in there. And basically all you do is rinse them off once they're fully cooked. Just rinse them under cold water, cool them off, peel them, and just allow them to cool off before going into the cooking stage. So I'm just going to start by cutting the arrowroot into some chunks. So arrowroot is particularly a very good substitute to using regular potatoes, in that arrowroot does carry quite a bit of nutrient, and remember, arrowroot is quite cost effective compared to most potatoes out there in the market. Remember, it's not largely consumed in the country, and particularly the beautiful thing about arrowroots is you can grow them all through the year. They're available most of the year. They're much more affordable than regular potatoes, and as I said, they carry a beautiful rustic taste to them that just really accompanies a dish like githeri really well. So we're just going to come back to the pot, and you'll start to notice your tomatoes are just going to start breaking apart. And you can actually use your spoon to just aid in just rushing the process a little bit. Right, so now that's just about done. So to that I will be incorporating about 2 pinches of salt. We'll add also some of that dried parsley and just about half of that garlic powder. And we're just going to continue just mixing that as it continues to cook down. Remember, particularly if you're not using very, very ripe tomatoes, it is important to add just a bit of water. This actually helps your tomatoes to break apart and also helps the skins to break apart from the tomato flesh. And now basically just coming back to the arrowroot, very, very simple. We're going to be incorporating some tomatoes to that too. So I'm just going to start off by dicing some tomatoes. So particularly for this recipe, I'm using some hard tomatoes, but if you can actually be able to find some very ripe tomatoes, it will actually save you time when cooking. and you might actually require less water than you did in the beginning. Alright, so we're just going to let that continue cooking down. We're gonna keep that covered just to allow us to cook those tomatoes a little faster. And I'll also just reduce my temperature to medium. And now to this other end, we're also going to heat up another pot. Remember, we're also going to be doing some arrowroot stew, which we're going to start off now. And for that, you'll need a bit of tomatoes, a bit of onions. And first of all, you always start with your oil. So just a generous drizzle of oil. And to that, I will be incorporating some of this dry thyme. Just about a quarter teaspoon of dried parsley, and the last of that garlic powder. Basically, you just want to just leave those in the pan just until you start to get that beautiful aroma from the thyme and the garlic. You can actually also use your spoon to break apart the garlic powder. It does actually come a little dry, so just use your spoon to break that apart. And next up will be your onions. Right, and for this you're also going to saute them just till they sweat, or rather till just when they begin to start decolorizing. It's a beautiful aroma coming from the thyme, so you do get this beautiful rustic aroma coming through. And then to that we're gonna add our arrowroots. Just give that a quick stir. Right, so basically for this stage you just want to give your arrowroots just a bit of time to just start to absorb the flavors from the garlic and the thyme. Remember, these were already pre-cooked, so you don't really need to cook them too long. We're also going to be adding to that some water. Right, so this should actually be sauteing in your pan for about 4 to 5 minutes. And now once you get to that stage, we're just going to take them out of the pan for a few seconds. Remember, particularly for ingredients that you have already pre-cooked, it's always important to be very careful with cooking times just to make sure you don't overcook the ingredients. Right, so we're just going to put that back on the heat. We're gonna add a bit more oil. And to that, we will incorporate some of those tomatoes. And last but not least, a bit of that beautiful turmeric powder. So we're going to use just about 3/4 of a teaspoon. Right, so basically at this stage you just want to really just saute your tomato. And remember, your tomato does also release just a bit of water, so you might actually need a bit more water just to break those down. And we're just going to do it just the way we did with the first process. Right, so at medium heat, we're going to cover that up and allow it to cook a little. And then just to bring you back to the other pot, tomatoes are now broken down slightly. And the mixture is just starting to become very, very oozy and runny. So I'm just going to use my wooden spoon to just finish breaking up those last pieces of tomato. And to that, we're just going to add our githeri. So remember, this was pre-boiled. So this basically took about 3 cups of maize and 2 cups of beans. And I just allowed them to cook in a pressure cooker. So we're just going to add that in half. So we're just going to go first of all with the first half. And we're just going to give that a mix just to make sure that everything's coated nicely in there. And we're gonna add the rest of that Githeri mixture. And you're just going to give that a nice thorough mix. And now, as I said, remember your Githeri is pre-cooked, so remember this doesn't really need to cook for too long. We are going to add just a bit of water to allow it to really steam up. And we're going to keep that covered, and we're going to allow that to continue in some low heat. And just to bring your attention back to this side, the tomatoes are still whole, they're not broken up, so we are going to give that a few more minutes to continue. And we will check on those just in a little while. But in the meantime, remember, we also have a very, very beautiful healthy smoothie that goes really well with this dish. And it's a very particular simple one. I'm just going to grab my blender, my jug. So I'm going to be blending the mixture, and as I mentioned, or if I haven't mentioned it already, very, very particular important tool, especially if you're making smoothies. Remember, you particularly need a good machine that can really break all the ingredients you add in there. Remember, we're going to be incorporating some spinach. We're also going to be adding some nuts. So very, very crucial that you actually pick a very, very good blender for this particular purpose. So very simply, I'm just going to turn that board around and grab a fresh knife. So we're going to start this very simply with our ginger root. So I'm just going to quickly roughly chop those. So remember, particularly for this smoothie, we are looking for very, very strong pungency from the ginger. So it's very, very crucial that you actually blend the ginger whole with the skin on. Right, we're going to use just about that much. So we're going to add all that into our blender. We're also going to add just a bit of that soy milk. So I'm just going to go half. And to that, we'll also be incorporating our baby spinach. But remember, just to always make it a little easier for you to blend your ingredients, I always insist, always try and just roughly chop them up. This actually makes it a little less of a strain in your blender, and you actually guarantee your blender a bit of a longer life. Remember, first particular thing to always remember with working with blenders is the fact that it does come with a blade attachment, and it's very important that you understand how that works. Remember, it's very important that you maintain your equipment at home really, really well so that it can really just be able to do its purpose. So very, very important that if you're adding anything to your ingredients, always a very, very good idea to actually just try and cut them to the smallest size you can. But remember, again, finely chopping these ingredients will not guarantee a smoothie. It's going to guarantee something closer to a very pasty sauce. So it's always important to just allow your ingredients to just be at a fairly good chunkable size, because it is going to blend in the smoothie. Right, so about 200 grams of baby spinach. To that, I'm also going to add about half a cup of some mixed nuts. And last but not least, just a bit of that soy milk. So very, very simply, just cover that up, and that goes straight to your blender. All right, so we're gonna quickly check on this side. Now tomatoes are still a little far, so we're just going to drop the heat a little bit and just allow those to continue. Just to check on the Githeri as well, this is just about done. So we're just going to give that a quick mix. And to finish that off, simply just add a pinch of salt. And give that one final mixture. And now your Githeri is now ready, so we're just going to turn that down. And we're gonna cover that and leave it on the side for a little bit. And just to bring your attention back to this side, remember we already have some soy milk in there, some ginger, and some baby spinach. To that I will add just 1 teaspoon of nutmeg powder. You can use whole nutmeg if you can be able to get some. And just right, so now that is ready, and basically we're just going to set that aside and we're going to give that a few minutes just to sit. And remember, we are just going to plate all this as one dish, so I prefer, if you're going to be holding this, you can actually keep it in the fridge and serve it before dinner. But if you're going to be making a fresh smoothie, it always tastes better once you just blend it and serve it immediately. So I'll just leave that in the jug for now. And just to bring you back to this side, we're just going to finish off our arrowroot stew. So as you can be able to see from the cameras, the tomatoes are now nice and pasty. This is basically the consistency you're looking for the stew. And to that, we're just going to add our arrowroots. And we're just going to give that a quick mix. And as I said, last but not least, always remember to season your food slightly. So I'm just going to go in with about 2 pinches of salt. And all you want to do is give that a nice, quick, simple mixture. And your arrowroots are now ready, so we're just going to turn off the heat as well, and we're going to keep that covered just to keep it hot. And basically, it is as simple as that. At least you now have an idea of how to make a very, very simple githeri fry. You can also now be able to do your own arrowroot stew. But that being said, we are still going to finish off by plating these beautiful dishes that we made today. But we are going to do that right after the short break. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who were with us just before the break, we were just finishing off a beautiful githeri and an arrowroot stew, which I'm about to serve now. I'll be serving it on a beautiful big plate like this, but you're more than welcome to try out with any plates you may have at home. So I will start off with the arrowroots. Just going to give that a quick mix. We can move that onto the plate. Right, simple as that. And last but not least, our beautiful fried githeri. I'm just going to give that a quick mixture. We can serve that right on the side. And ladies and gentlemen, it is as easy as that. A beautiful arrowroot stew with fried githeri. But last but not least, we also have a beautiful ginger spice smoothie. And if you're just catching up and missed out on what went into this, we added some baby spinach, some mixed nuts, and some nutmeg, and last but not least, some soy milk. We just blended that together and it's now ready. So I'm just going to pour that into this nice tall glass. And just to finish that off, beautiful green straw. and voila. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said, very, very simple dish, and I hope you have been able to pick something new from the show today and something that you may actually be able to do yourself easily at home. Do remember that we also look forward to listening and getting your feedback, so do leave your comments, your inquiries, or anything that pertains this particular episode of the show, and me and my producers are definitely going to be looking forward to getting back to you. I will also bid you all farewell and wish you a very, very beautiful and prosperous new year. I hope you're all going to be tuning in to more episodes of Dinner Guide, where we are going to continue bringing some beautiful, beautiful segments this particular season 5. So from the studios and myself, have a lovely day, have a lovely evening, and if you're going to be having dinner as good as the one I'm about to have, enjoy it with your family, and until the next episode, see you soon.